warm welcome. Before we get started, I just want to say how great it is to be able to do this in person, so thank you for being here. My name is Prajakta Damle, and I lead the product teams for data governance at GCP. And with me today, I have two guest speakers. Sebastien Rozanes from Carrefour. He leads their data and analytics team and is the Chief Data and Analytics Officer. And Fong, who is the Big Data Engineering Manager at Snap. And they're here today to share a little bit about their data journeys and how they are helping their stakeholders realize value from data. So with that, let's get started. Now, all of you are well aware that the demands on data today are ever growing and increasing. And this is especially true in this Gen AI first world. And you, as CDOs, owners of data platform, data owners, are increasingly tasked with making sure that your data platform is scaling to meet your business needs. As more users and more tools need access to data, you're able to give them access in a secure and easy manner. And as a result of this, it's getting extremely challenging to realize value on many of your data initiatives. Across our customer base, we see that there are some key reasons why customers are unable to realize value from their data. The first one is dealing with dark data. Not knowing what data exists in your organization, what data is duplicate, and where to even start looking for data that you need. Does this resonate with you? Are there people here struggling with dark data? Well, once you find data that you're looking for, the next challenge is really to know whether you can trust that data, whether you're dealing with data that's complete, that's accurate. And I'm sure all of us have been in a situation at some point of time where you've used a data set that's incomplete or inaccurate, only to realize it a little too late. And now with data footprint being more and more distributed, with data being stored in multiple formats, in different storage products, and in different locations, maintaining a consistent governance and compliance stature is becoming even more challenging. Oh, I think I skipped some slides, sorry. There. Still learning how to use the clicker. We launched Dataplex to help you reduce some of these impediments and be more data-driven and be able to realize more value from your data. Dataplex is a data-first, opinionated data governance and data management product. It integrates with a number of our existing GCP products and capabilities to provide you the ability to govern and manage your data at scale. With Dataplex, you can catalog all your data, unify and organize that data, leveraging metadata, and then centrally secure and manage that data, and map that back to your business context. Dataplex has built-in capabilities such as profiling, lineage, classification, and more that will help you manage data at scale. And we're seeing Dataplex used today by customers in a variety of industry verticals, geographies, customers of varying scale. In fact, over 70% of top Google Cloud data analytics customers use Dataplex today to manage and govern their data. And we are also collaborating and integrating with a number of partners, such as Colibra and others, to build an end-to-end data fabric that you can leverage to manage your distributed data landscape. Now, we launched Dataplex last year in February. And since then, we have been busy listening to all of you, working back from your needs, and innovating and adding capabilities across the spectrum to really enable you to discover your data with business context, centrally secure and manage your data, and build trust in your data at scale. And I have a few more things to add to this list today. But before I do that, I do want to invite Sebastien on stage and share a little bit more about how his team at Carrefour is delivering value from data.
Thank you, Prajakta, for the introduction. I'm really honored to be with you today. So I'm Sebastien. I am the global CDAO for Carrefour and one of the major customers of Google on the Google platform. And I will tell you a bit about our story, how we got accelerated on data governance, data management. We leverage Dataplex, and I will tell you that a bit more at the end. But before that, I wanted to tell you a bit about the story that enabled me to embark our executive committee, our business leaders into the data governance journey. Because let me tell you one thing. There's very few very senior business leaders who are interested about data governance. Intuitively seen as a bit of a boring topic or as a required activity to make things running, but it's not something that naturally will excite people. People are more excited about generative AI or machine learning than by data governance. However, it's probably the most important topic I have to tackle as a chief data officer. So I will tell you how we storyline it to embark these people. But before I do that, I wanted to share with you a few numbers for you to understand what's the asset we are talking about. So Carrefour, for those of you who are not very familiar with Carrefour, we are a global retailer operating in 44 countries, not operating in North America, by the way, so probably hence why most North Americans don't know Carrefour. It's headquartered in France, but it has now a global footprint. With that comes a huge machine behind. We have, as you can see here, more than 80 million customers globally, and 50 million of them have a loyalty card, so we have very rich granular data on them. We have 9 core countries in which we operate and 35 more where we have franchises that are operating under the Carrefour brand. And we processed 10 billion tickets and have more than 85 million monthly orders in our supply chain. Just to give you a few numbers about the massive organization that it is, with 400,000 employees globally. And all of that comes to the Google Cloud, and we operate a global data platform and local data platform, consolidating 10 billion transactions over 3 years, so which makes it the largest data platform for a retailer in Europe. So starting with this number, you might ask yourself, how do I make sure that I create a wonderful asset out of it? Make sure that I increase the quality of the data that is here, because, by the way, all the algorithm, all the dashboards, and all the decision-making tools that are built on top of it are dependent on the quality of what's inside here. So my goal was to, in a way, if I use one of the mottos that work very well here in North America, is how do I make data governance great again and cool for the organization? And we find a way, and we set out for ourselves a vision behind it. So because we operate supermarkets, we used, with our entire teams and also our external partners that are purchasing our data, because we also have a data business where we sell our data to brands. We want to make data shopping as easy as a trip to the supermarket. And we chose this analogy because it worked for us as a retailer, and my advice for all of you guys is find the analogy that works for your business and resonates very, very well with the teams, with the business teams, which are the kernel behind data governance. What did he try to solve? So here's kind of a real-life example of what happens every day at Carrefour. We have a business person who has a relatively simple question. I want to have turnover, actually VAT, whatever, data I want. And then I start having a loop of people embedded, it goes to the manager, it goes to somebody in the tech team, it goes back to somebody who is governing data. And at the end, we figure out that the data is actually in the end of somebody in the analytics team. So it's a mess because you have all these people involved, and it's very difficult for the business user to find its way to find the person who can get the data out. And hence why the vision that we've defined, and I will try to show you how it works concretely, was to put everything under one roof, have 3 principles apply systematically to all our data. data must be accessible, must be understandable, and must be reliable. And behind all of that, you can imagine all of the design principles for data governance that you can apply to it, all the criteria that we apply to our data to make sure that these 3 criteria are always met. And the idea is also to bypass a number of the stakeholders that are, frankly, not adding much value in the process. So here is the vision. So if you think about the analogy, the metaphor behind it, if you think about data in a way is a raw material. It's like, the corn in the field. And it comes from different systems at Carrefour. And then there are a number of processing plants that are like the ETLs, transforming all of our data to make it usable. And then this data is dumped into a warehouse. For us, it's called a data warehouse, but in a way, it's like a warehouse in the supply chain. And it's waiting here to be consumed. What typically happens is that we have analytics teams. So at Carrefour, it's called the analytics factory. It's my team. It's consisting of a number of data scientists, data engineers, data analysts, and experts of data visualizations who are, in a way, operating like a restaurant. This restaurant is nice because it serves the business users here. And all the business users, they love to go to the restaurant. Why? Because it's very comfortable. You don't have to take care with the mess of the warehouse. So I go directly to the team, and I always have these guys in the middle of my decision-making process. However, what happens? My team is totally under the water. There are bottlenecks here because there are too many requests, and of course, people get frustrated. The chefs here, they are frustrated because they get too many requests and they don't know how to prioritize and come to me and say, how do I manage my workload? And the guys here in the business are frustrated because they say, why do I need to wait 2 weeks to get the data out of this company? And so some people, because they are fed up, they go directly to the warehouse. But guess what? The warehouse, so it's BigQuery for us, it has never been built to be used and usable by a business user. It has been built for data engineers, for data scientists, so people get lost and they don't know which box to open, and they don't even have a driving permit for the forklift to get the data out on the 5th level because they've never learned SQL. So they are totally lost, and many people don't have even access. It's congested because all the tech people who are here, they have no idea how to manage these business relationships. And in the end, guess what? Most people who are going to here, they don't get the right data. They don't get the right product out of the box. So they think they get this turnover, but actually they take a turnover without the VAT. They wanted to have it with VAT, but they have no idea. Why? It's because here all the data are labeled in a technical way. It's not ready for business. So that's why we came up with this concept of the data supermarket. The supermarket is this extra layer that organizes all this data, and we built that over the Dataplex layer that was introduced to you by Prajakta earlier. It's a place where all the users can easily discover the data. So why? Because the data are displayed, organized in arrays with specific labels on each of the products. And by the way, all the labels should be interpretable by a human. At least this is the vision of when you enter a supermarket, you want to know what you're buying. So if you double-click in this concept of data supermarket, again, this analogy is critical because it's how we at Carrefour are embarking our business to make sure they understand that how it operates, how data works in such companies. You have basically 3 things. It's like a store that we operate. We have an assortment, stuff we put on shelves, an organization with people to operate the store, and some technologies here to operate, to make things work. And as you might imagine, this is the playing field of Dataplex. So if you go to talk about the assortment, it's basically where we put all the company data on shelves with simple, understandable, shared definitions with business rules and calculation rules that are transparent and understandable by everyone. You don't need to have a data engineer badge to understand how the KPI was calculated. And we have a clear plan to improve the assortment, to understand which assortment we need to put first on the shelf. And some quality improvement measures that we want to make sure that the products are always fresh when they are on the shelves. If we double-click on this, here's what it looks like. And here's how, again, the business can really understand what is a product hierarchy, what is a data product in a way, because these are data products we are putting on shelves. So we structured our data governance in 21 data domains, which are representing the exhaustive view of the data at Carrefour. And we decompose that into data families. And ultimately, what we care about, the core of the problem, is how do we make sure that we put here, and sorry, I just see that there are some French that's still not translated here, but I guess you can imagine what it is, tomatoes, salads, etc. So the data product here is exactly what we want to put on the shelf and what we want to control, and which we want to put quality measures, on which we want to have exhaustivity, clarity, transparency of all of this data. And of course, it goes down then to attributes at the end, which are all the data related to our data product. In a way, the data product also, like in a store, there are different nature of data products. Some data products can be very simple, very raw, like you can buy tomatoes. But you can also buy no transformed product, in a way a KPI is a transformed product, like tomato sauce would be that, and maybe you can buy in the fresh alley pizza, which will be composed of multiple KPIs, multiple consolidated indicators. So this is the way also to embark the business, is so they understand that in the end, everything that we produce as data, whether they are very raw or very transformed, these are all products that we are putting on shelves, and hopefully we make them accessible, understandable, and reusable. Because we don't want people to reinvent all the time the recipe to make a pizza. And guess what? This is what happens at Carrefour, like in many big organizations. People are reinventing the wheel, reinventing the recipe every time, which is both a challenge because later you need to reconnect the data together, and of course it doesn't work. And two, they spend a lot of time on this versus creating value for the organization. So then comes the organization behind it. So I will be very brief on this. This is the part where I had personally to convince the most my senior management team that they need to invest. Because as a data officer, I am not operating the data supermarket. The data supermarket is operated by the business. I am, in a way, I'm kind of the supply chain manager. I'm providing the data to the door of the supermarket, and then you're managing your store. Each alley is managed by the business. Just like in a store, like the headquarters where I belong, we never operate a store. So here's where we put in place at Carrefour roles of data owners in the business, the committees, the decision-making process to prioritize assortment we will put on shelves. Because guess what? We'd love to put 100% of our data in 100% quality levels everywhere. But it's costly. We need to prioritize. We need to be use case driven, value driven. Who is the best position to define which data is of value? It is a business, not me. So again, I'm providing them with the skills, training them to be good data managers, good shop managers. I'm providing them with a playbook, but then they operate, they run the show, and ultimately they run the data supermarket. They run an alley or a set of shelves, and their friends run another set of shelves, and when they want to do cross-functional analysis, they trust each other on the way because they operate the same way. And finally comes the tool, and the tool is has been for us essential to make sure that this data stored in our data lake for years is actually usable and efficient for our business users. So we need a simple, intuitive, and powerful tool to do that. And before we went for Dataplex, we actually scanned the market for a number of tools who are doing this. You mentioned Colibra earlier. They were part of the RFP, the request for proposal that we made. A number of people maybe know things like Data Galaxy or Informatica. So if some of you are from these companies, close your ears, because we scanned everything and we couldn't find any of the solutions on the market who was simple enough, business-oriented enough to meet the requirements, the very simple requirements of putting data available to everyone. All of the players we looked at, they had super rich features, super rich data sets of activities you could do with it, but it was way too complex for our business users to engage. When we showed this product to the business users, I said, wow, I'm lost. Too many options, too many menus, too many things I can do. I just want to have data available. And I want it to be simple. And I don't want to have two-day training to be able to access the supermarket. So and then that's when we met with the Google team, and we figured out there was that great solution built natively on top of Google Cloud called Dataplex that is, in a way, cataloging, structuring all the data. As it is today, the interface is yet still, for me, very well built for our data teams. What we decided to do is to build a custom layer with web technologies on top of Dataplex. Dataplex doing all of the heavy lifting for us, structuring, doing the data lineage, all this difficult stuff that are difficult to replicate is done natively, totally integrated with the entire Google stack, enabling, for example, natively to grant access to people who enter the supermarket and say, I want access to this data product. Can you give me access? Yes, very easily, because it's natively integrated. So it's by coupling the technical proposition of Dataplex with a very simple solution. So this is what it looks like today. It's a very simple portal that looks a bit like Google. We can navigate, through the data architecture. Here, like basically, the pyramid I showed you earlier. Here you have different notions of turnover. So here's the VAT including turnover. You can see here you have the data owners. You have a rule to manage how it is calculated, all the synonyms, the sensitivity. You have a link to the data product is linked to an advanced product, which is in a way the tomato sauce is linked to the pizza in a way, with all the reports that are being produced using this data that are certified. You can even go with Dataplex to the table. So if you are more technical, more for data analysts, you can link back to the table and even understand how to, what SQL code you can reuse to access the data platform. So in a way, it speaks to the business because, as you can see, the first interface is really built for a business user. It says, I want to understand how this KPI is calculated in a very simple fashion, and hopefully I want to have access to here some linked data products which are calculation based on this turnover, or dashboards that are certified by a data owner that are reporting the sales by store, and it's the one dashboard that I want you to access and not the one of your friend or in the other division. So we make all the data, whether raw, transform, or finished goods, available through a single platform with Dataplex, and we built this simple interface with very few options on top of it to make it accessible. And here, by the way, you can add that to the basket. What it means is that if you add it to the basket, you can request access to this data. So the big change this does for our teams is that by default, all the data products, dashboard, become visible to everyone. Just like when you go to a store, everybody can see the alcohol department. But if you're in France, for example, if you're 17 years old, you are not 18, you can see the product, you can see the whiskey. You're not getting out with the whiskey because they request you the ID card. So the same idea here, that we want to make everything visible, but it doesn't mean that you have access. So making all of this data accessible by design is a game changer for the organization to make sure that we don't reinvent the wheel and we make all the basic stuff simply available without any human intervention with all the complex process I showed you in the introduction. Good, that concludes my part on how we at Carrefour are approaching this and how we connect that to the Dataplex. So let me, thank you. Let me introduce you to Fong, who will tell you about his journey at Snap. Thank you, guys.
Hi, all. Wow, I've never seen my photo like that, this big. So a little bit about myself. My name is Fong. I am a manager at Snapchat. I've been in the data space for 20 years, but the last 8 years I've been at Snap. And I want to talk to you about our own journey towards data governance. So Snap is a technology company. Snapchat is an app that empowers our users, empowers our people to express themselves, live in the moment, learn about the world, just have fun with each other. Our community is about 397 daily active users on average, and we use data in all sorts of ways, right? So we have analytics data, we have machine learning, we have experimentation, feature development, right? So these are all the things that you know. So before I kind of get into deep, I want to talk a little bit about a bit of our Snap's architecture. So being data-driven is really important to us, right? And a key principle that we have is we want to be able to enable each individual teams to build their own pipelines to solve for their own needs at their own pace. So super critical to all this is that teams are enabled to do the things in which, to solve the problems. So what we have is we'll have systems of service produce thousands of data sets, right? These are logging data that you guys all know about. But as teams build their data pipelines in their own way, in their own little silos, the results of all this is that you have teams producing multiple data in multiple formats with multiple schemas across millions of partitions, across many GCP projects, right? So to make this even more interesting, as teams, these schemas will evolve over time. As teams continue to innovate, the schemas will change all the time. So what's the problem with all this? Right? How does your data scientist know what data is out there? How does your MLE knows what data is out there? How do you ensure that data governance is implemented uniformly within these individual teams? So the first problem that we have is we have dark data. With millions of partitions spread across different storage technologies, data discovery is the key to answer simple questions like, what data does Snap have? What is this field used for? What is this data used for? Is this data even trustworthy? Who currently has access to it? Who should have access to it? And the adoption of new technology, new use cases makes this a continued problem, right? A second problem that we have is, as you notice, that individual teams are enabled to build their own pipelines. What you have is these what I call data puddles, right? Just localized data lakes. So because with zero interoperability between teams, because blob storage, you're not required to consistently write defined schemas on write. This leads to inefficiencies in data engineering efforts and duplicate data. You're not able to read it. Most teams will just reproduce the data from scratch. It increases the risk of data compliance compromises and systems disruption. Diminishes our ability to optimize resources. You're not able to get economy of scales if you're not able to kind of get everybody to do the right thing, right? And it hinders our ability to drive compliance. So with these two problems, what to do with this mess? Our vision is to embrace the decoupled execution principle, but we want to convert from a data mess into a data mesh. Are you able to see that?
Yes. Yes.
So with Dataplex, Snap built a unified management and governance layer on top of our distributed data so that individual teams are able to continue to be powered to develop on their own life cycle at their own pace, while at the same time putting the guardrails in place to ensure standardized data quality and compliance. So what we've done is introduce three things. First is a logical data lake that spans across multiple physical boundaries. Enables interoperability between teams that were once siloed. The thing on the bottom, second thing is a centralized metadata catalog that's tightly integrated with our infrastructure. So as teams are reading from one data set, writing from another data set, we're able to establish a lineage graph. With that lineage graph, we're able to enrich that with how much does this data set cost? How much does it cost to produce this data set? How often is this data set read? What is the cost of that read? And secondly, and lastly, is we're able to tie it all together by building a centralized data governance tooling framework to do the undifferentiated heavy lifting of keeping data safe, compliant, and driving best practices. So we're able to answer simple questions like, where is the data now, right? With the data mesh, our vision is to drive maximum potential of analytics data by providing the tools to discover, query, protect, and clean data at scale. So with that, we have 4 goals. Cost and performance optimization through managed and efficient storage and waste. Secure and compliance through centralized and tight integration of data governance framework, Ease of use, making it easy to read from, make it easy to write to. And lastly is adoption of open source, especially to unlock our ML initiatives. So what capabilities do we leverage Dataplex for? 3 things. One is a unified metadata catalog. What we were able to do is, with a unified metadata catalog, we're able to merge our little data puddles into a single data lake organized by a logical business grouping. We started off with data discovery and compliance, but we ended up saving tens of millions of dollars every year for the past couple of years, just because now we're able to identify data waste. We're able to identify inefficient storage format. So I would say cost savings is definitely up there in terms of the impact. And lastly is able to accelerate development velocity. So now teams are able to share with each other. What you get here is now teams are thinking, if my data set's being used by multiple ways, maybe I should partition my data in a ways where it's able to be used across multiple use cases, right? So now we have a lot more interoperability between teams now. The second capabilities that we had was auto-discovery GCS. So Dataplex does this thing where it scans GCS files, and as it detects new data sets in there, it'll register in your catalog. What that has done for us is enabled continuous data classification. So when it detects, when there's a new data set out there with PII, we're able to apply the right policies on it. Secondly is we're able to reduce operation loads. So Dataplex takes care of the schema refreshes for us. Lastly is we're able to adopt open source technologies. So what happens is now we're able to query data directly from GCS without the loading into a structured data warehouse. So it bypasses the entire step for us. Unlocks analytics capability via notebook integration. Unlocks ML capabilities via Vertex AI and Spark support for us. So which is a huge use case for us. Our journey doesn't end. I mean, I feel like we're still really early in our journey. And looking forward, we actually have 4 areas that we're looking to improve. We want to double down on efficient ML by leveraging open source technology. We want to be able to unify our data access control policies based on the sensitivity data. So what happens is, with further investments in data classification, we're able to just identify more types of data, PII, phone numbers, birth dates. We want to be able to host this policy in a single place and then leverage the enforcement of it through native integration throughout our ecosystems. Data lineage is something that we want to learn more and build more of, so deeper integration with the rest of our tool sets. And then with that one, we're looking to get more cost savings. We want to be able to better prioritize our data. So you can imagine, if you tag a CEO dashboard as being high priorities, you imagine all the jobs that feeds it to also be high priority as well, right? Lastly is data trustworthiness. Knowing that your data is used by the CEO dashboard, chances are that the entire lineage is probably trustworthy enough. Lastly is improved data quality. Automated rules to alert anomalies is super critical for ML initiatives. These models are trained on tens of thousands of features, right? There's no way that you are able to write jobs manually. So automation of these anomaly detections is key to us. And with that, I want to hand it back to Prajakta.
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank both Sebastien and Fong for sharing such really valuable insights, sharing the challenges that your team faced, and also how you are able to let your business teams operate autonomously while still putting guardrails to really make sure that you have governed access, governed oversight over your data. So it's hard to kind of follow that and follow those stories, but I'm going to try with some new announcements that we want to make available today in Dataplex. So first one is actually our integration and extension to Vertex AI. We believe that data governance and AI governance shouldn't be two separate things, shouldn't be siloed. And with that in mind, we are actually making cataloging of Vertex AI metadata readily available in Dataplex. So now, as you create new models and data sets in Vertex, the metadata for those would be automatically cataloged in Dataplex in near real time, so that your data assets and AI assets are searchable in one and the same interface. Dataplex already supports a variety of sources, as you can see here, where we automatically catalog and index metadata for Google data sources in near real time, and give you the ability to bring in third-party metadata into a single comprehensive metadata graph that describes your data, relationships, as well as your business context. And this really forms the foundation of your governance. So finding and knowing what data exists is just the first step. Once you find the data that you own and have access to, you often need to know the shape of your data. And that's where the profiling feature in Dataplex is super handy. And this is now generally available. It was in preview for some time, and we really appreciate all the feedback that we got from you. With profiling, you can track the statistical characteristics of your data. You can run this over a period of time to track things like change in your data, data drifts. And you can also make this profiling information available alongside the rest of your metadata in catalog and Dataplex, as well as directly in BigQuery. So your data scientists, analysts have this information handy as they are starting to work with their data. Data profiling information is also useful in the next capability of Dataplex, data quality, where we are able to auto-generate and recommend rules based on the profile of your data. You are always able to add custom rules where you can call a UDF in BigQuery or a BQML model as part of your custom rules. And these rules run on a completely managed serverless platform with built-in alerting, dashboarding, reporting to really help you measure things like completeness, validity, accuracy, and freshness of your data. And just like profiling, you can make the data quality results or relevant data quality results available both in the data catalog part of Dataplex as additional metadata, as well as directly within BigQuery. And we give you the flexibility to configure your alerts, to configure actions based on granular rules on a given table, as well as monitor the overall health of your data by providing you built-in dashboards and reports. Now, once you find that a certain table has an issue, has a data quality issue, you often need to know its upstream and downstream dependencies. And that's where Lineage comes in handy. Now, we launched Lineage earlier this year, and we have been rapidly expanding the support of Lineage. We are able to automatically track Lineage for BigQuery, BigQuery Omni for cross-cloud Lineage, as well as for Big Lake. And then we've also added support for Data Fusion and Composer, along with extendable APIs that you can create events for third-party data sources. But today, we are announcing general availability of data lineage for Spark jobs running on Dataproc. So regardless of the language that your Spark jobs are written in, or whether they are Spark SQL jobs or RDDs, we are able to automatically track lineage for these jobs and show them in the same lineage graph in Dataplex. But not only are we supporting Spark jobs on Dataproc, we are also enabling support for Open Lineage. So any system that integrates with Open Lineage can now submit events that get reported into Dataplex and tracked as part of its lineage. And last but not the least, we are announcing the upcoming availability of Duet AI in Dataplex. Now, as I mentioned, Dataplex provides a built-in global search where we automatically index your metadata and make that available for you for your search queries. But you might have business users, as Sebastien was mentioning, who might want to ask a question of their data. And for them, we are enabling a natural language interface over our search that will make it easy, especially for business users, to ask questions of their data. Now, what happens when you don't know where to start or what questions to ask? So the next capability that we're enabling is providing you not only access to data, but insights. And what do I mean by that? We want to give you a highly curated list of questions that you can start asking of your data as a starting point to start exploring your data. and to really solve that cold start problem. Now, these questions will certainly be available on a table level, but the interesting part is that we are able to give you these questions across tables at a data set level as well as across projects. So you can really start asking these questions and really understanding data as well as the relationships between your data. Now, Dataplex leverages metadata to generate these list of questions, and then we use usage data to actually rank them so that we give you a highly curated and relevant list of questions that you can use. And you can click on these questions, as you can see here, and run the SQL directly within BigQuery and BigQuery Studio to get results and start and jumpstart your analytics. That's all we have today. Unfortunately, we probably don't have time for live Q&A, but all three of us will be available after this session for any questions that you might have or any comments, discussions that you'd like to have. And I want to thank everybody for attending. Thanks, Sebastien and Fong, for making time to share their stories today. Thank you very much, everybody.